Up on my computer. Are we supposed to have that downloaded? I got rid of it already, but I keep just dismissing it.
Dustin sent some instructions.
Oh, okay.
So,
Today?
no,
This is a while ago, probably.
I was gonna say, 'cause
no, and I can find them and resend them to you.
Okay. Because
My cell has 7 o'clock.
it just keeps popping up on my screen. I just always dismiss it.
And it
Yeah,
is,
it's, right.
It said something about it's supposed to be able to get access from your phone or something. I don't know. Just something.
You know, just as a general, before we get started real quick, there seems, and I'm not picking on anyone, I'm not calling anyone out, but in general, been getting a lot of questions about how to use these Surface Pros and how to download the packet and how to set it up so that you can use it more easily during the meeting. So if you guys are interested, we can set up some,
class?
you know, a time, individual or group time or something, and just sort of hash it out so that you guys can get familiar with it, if you guys are interested.
It might be a good idea.
I'm
Okay.
interested.
I could do that.
Okay.
Alright. It's just a couple tricks.
Are you ready?
Ready?
We're good? Okay. I'll call this June 8th Seward City Council regular meeting to order. And before, I've had quite a few people in the public remind me, and then council members remind me, asking council to put their phones away. And I'm guilty of that also, watching time. So my phone is put away before the meeting.
Mine is too.
Lieutenant, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a roll call. Madam Clerk? Cease?
Here.
Butts?
Present.
Blackwan?
Present.
Kreitz? Here. McClure?
Here.
Osinga?
Here.
Mayor Terry? Yes, you have a quorum, Mayor. Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. Madam Clerk or Deputy Clerk, I know there's a number of ways that folks could have provided comments. Which were we gonna start with tonight?
Virginia Rondazzo, and I will read her comments.
Thank you.
It says, Dear Mayor Terry and council members, thank you for responding to the pandemic with quick, direct action and leadership. It was your decisive action guided by Dr. Ann Zink that has kept our community relatively safe. I appreciate the thought put into the reopening plan and know you will continue with decisive action if and when it becomes necessary. As we all know, the virus is not gone. An action the council and mayor can do now is to strongly encourage mask wearing in shared public spaces. Dr. Zink recommends the wearing of masks on the Department of Health and Social Services website and Facebook page when 6-foot distances cannot be maintained. It has been well established by experts that wearing a mask stops the spread of droplets that are expelled when breathing, coughing, or sneezing. When we wear a mask, we are showing that we have concern for our neighbors and care about the health and well-being of our community. Posting on our Facebook page, city website, and perhaps printing the DHSS image as a banner reminds visitors and residents alike that Seward encourages mask wearing in shared public spaces. Let's show that we really are all in this together by wearing masks in shared public spaces with the strong support of our city council and mayor. A special thank you to Safeway for implementing and continuing the employee mask wearing policy.
Great, thank you.
And next is Pat Dimitrovich, who will be appearing in person.
Thank you. Do I need to call out the door? Oh, good, thank you. Okay.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Pat Dimitrovich. I've been asked to write this letter by several members of the community after some thought I think is appropriate at this time. I'd like to thank the City of Seward for the opportunity to work for such a great community. And the purpose of this letter is to inform and educate. Some of you know I recently separated from the city by mutual agreement, primarily my choice. I accepted the position February 6th, 2020. Began work February 18th, 2020. and I left May 1st, 2020. I worked in the electric utility industry for 30 plus years. This capacity of electrical engineer, foreman for a relay shop, substation technician, and most recently as a field engineer for the sewage sewer. I worked for the largest utility in Alaska for 30 plus years. In those 30 years, I've never been disciplined or reprimanded for any reason, not even verbally. In my short time in the city of Seward, I've been written up, verbally reprimanded several times a week. The city manager has a copy of my work journal, so outlining all I'm speaking of here. The infractions, in my opinion, do not make much sense. They range from parking a city vehicle 20 feet out of place to constant and very forceful criticism of my quality and quantity of work. I was bullied and subject to the most hostile and unprofessional work environment I've ever been exposed to. The electric department is very broken and needs some attention. Management argues amongst themselves, they use foul language, and are generally hostile. I was called into the management's office weekly and chastised for nearly anything I was or was not doing. It was very degrading and humiliating to be treated in such a fashion. I was directed not to talk to customers, co-workers, or the line crews. Everything was to go through the operations supervisor, no exceptions. I was informed I was a safety hazard for not processing locates fast enough and to toughen up Buttercup. That's a very serious accusation. I could go on, but I think that's enough to get here. And I would like to thank you guys for your time. And if you have any questions, I can take them. Or
This is just a public comment portion, so thank you very much, sir.
okay.
Appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk.
Next, we have Rissy Casagrande, and she will be called on the phone.
I saw her.
She's right there.
I think I saw her here earlier.
There she is.
Are you calling me? No. I'm here. Rissy Casagrande, 225 2nd Avenue. Let's see. I have a couple things. First of all, thank you so much for having me here tonight. It's an honor to be able to be in a public meeting. And I also am in the process of a rezoning application. I recently bought a 3,000 square foot lot that is in a R3 zone. And the side yard setbacks for R3 are 10 feet on either side, which leaves me, if I was ever to demolish or rebuild the structure that is grandfathered in there, I could build a 10-foot wide by 70-foot long home, which to me sounds like a mobile home. Hold on. Outside. I just am hopeful that I went through the application process. I paid my $300. I turned it in. Sweet Andy gave me great suggestions, so I went back out to the public and got my neighbors to get on my application with me. I thought that was good enough, and I went to the planning and zoning meeting, and the commission decided that it would be a great idea to include, I think, like 3 or 4 or 5 blocks across the street from me and one more on the same block as me onto my application. So I didn't feel like it was any longer my application. I feel like it's now the city's application, and I'm willing to be patient and go with the process and do whatever it takes to help the city make something pretty, but I don't think that it should be my cost anymore, because it's not my application. It's a whole bunch more people's applications than mine. So in the meeting, the director told the commission that it was non-refundable, but then I was caught outside of the chambers after the meeting and was told that there is a process that I can go through to get my $300 back. I haven't received any information on that yet, but I would be interested in getting my $300 back and helping the city out in whatever way. And then finally, as a business owner and CARES Act money, I'm sure all of you are aware, like, I just really hope that you guys do the right thing. I'm up to $93,000 in refunds. Small businesses are hurting, whether it appears that way from a government perspective or not. We're hurting. We're all doing the very best. I'm still gonna buy my beautiful flowers. I'm still gonna buy my beautiful lemons. And I'm still gonna do my very best, even if I don't make money. So I would appreciate your guys' help. Thank you.
Next, we have Max Pfeifenberger, who will be appearing in person.
This for the council as well.
Can you just hand it to Councilmember Price? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Max Pfeifenberger. Thank you for giving me the time to make this presentation. I've lived here in Seward all my life. I'm proud to be a part of this community, and I was honored to represent Seward in Obie Hero last year. Seward has many opportunities for kids. I've enjoyed Urbox, basketball, the Bear Bell Run, youth soccer, the community playground, the new bike park, and more. Although we do have good opportunities, there's always room for improvement. I feel that Seward could offer more for teens and young adults. I think a basketball court in Seward would be just the right improvement. Basketball is one of the most popular sports in America, and it is accessible to everyone. All you need is a ball and a safe place to play. I have a passion for basketball, and I have seen it bring people from many different backgrounds together. Almost every community that I have been to has an outdoor basketball court. I've been able to meet new people, and playing basketball has helped me through a common interest. Currently, there is very limited access to basketball courts in Seward. The high school gym is only open to students and only when a staff member opens it. The athletic gym has a fee and has limited hours. There are a few outdoor basketball hoops in Seward, however, they have many issues like uneven surfaces, small area, and short, rusty rims. These issues make them less than ideal and in some cases even unsafe. I am very interested in the possibility of renovating the existing basketball court near the Forest Acres campground into a safe, functional basketball court. An outdoor public court would be free and accessible to everyone in our community and to our visitors. Currently, this course does get some use. My friends and I have been using the court a few days a week this summer. We've had pickup games with campers and cannery workers. I feel the usage would greatly increase if the surface was improved. My idea for the space is to fix up the slab, resurface it, and add new hoops and basketball court lines. We could potentially add pickleball, foursquare, and other recreational lines depending on community interest. I'm still learning about how all this works. I understand that renovating this court is in the capital improvement plan prioritized. I'm hoping that renovating the court can be made a priority. I'm interested in and willing to lead a project to fundraise and to help make this happen. The Seward Prevention Coalition has agreed to be a fiscal sponsor. What I'm hoping for is a partnership with the city to pursue this project, or at a minimum, I would like to bring a resolution authorizing the rehabilitation of the court through community fundraiser. Thank you for considering this.
Great job, Max. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
So next is Maya Moriarty, and I will read her comments. Okay. Max Pfeifenberger is an incoming senior at Seward High School. He wrote me recently about a desire to renovate the basketball and tennis court adjacent to the community bike park in Forest Acres. This letter fully supports those endeavors. The most recent community health needs assessment showed a lack of healthy outlets for kids in our community. Thus, the grassroots-funded bike park and now Youth 360. People have flown to Iceland to take part in the Icelandic Model Conference to bring back ideas and support healthy outlets for our youth. This is one of them that was always on my radar after helping organize and build the Seward Community Playground. Most communities in my travels have outdoor basketball courts which are heavily used for regular pickup games. If you drive around Anchorage, you'll see kids playing outside at most of the school outdoor courts. Honolulu's courts are used typically every night of the week. Budget cuts, lower sales tax revenue, and now COVID-19 have affected what we do and how we do it. One thing experience has shown me is that when you get a group of parents and kids that want something, they'll find a way to grassroots fund it, volunteer build it, and get it done. The city usually just has to support it, donate the land, bless the project, and provide support where possible. Case in point, the community playground, community bike park, and the most recent 2020 graduation celebrations. So in this case, COVID-19 shouldn't affect the blessing of the project, fundraising efforts, or design. Also, since the courts already exist, recommended health protocols can be followed in building and renovating the courts. Just look around Seward and you'll see that construction hasn't stopped due to COVID-19. The last Wellness for All Community Strategic Meeting identifies a long and short-term project. The community garden and sustainable Seward were ideas that came to fruition from this community gathering. Most recently, my idea was for a covered basketball court, but I ended up voting for a covered outdoor sports rink that started out strong and fizzled. I voted for it because the idea was that it would serve multiple uses. With this project, I believe that the narrow focus, lower costs, parental and community support, and shorter time frame will allow the renovation of the basketball court to succeed. I'll leave you with this thought. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. Thank you. And next is Norm Regis, who will be appearing in person.
Hi, Norm Regis, Southside City Limits. We're talking as the harbor master tonight. I know you have a couple things coming up on the agenda, and JAG Industrial's lease is on the agenda first as a public hearing item, and they've requested for you guys to pull it this evening. They have to reevaluate some of the scope of work for the construction project, so they're not ready to move forward. So just asking if you could just pull that from the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Next is Doreen Lorenz, and I'll be reading her comments. We recall the words of the Seward City Manager just after he refused entry of a scheduled VIP tour of members of the Alaska State Legislature, Seward Planning and Zoning, Seward Historic Preservation Commission, former Seward City Council members, friends of the Jesse Lee Home, the news media, and a subsequent tour of the State of Alaska Department of Labor Commissioner, and her two deputy commissioners and the Friends of the Jesse Lee Home of the Jesse Lee Home Complex. In light of the Friends of Jesse Lee Home's commitment to the preservation of this historic site, I am hoping you and/or another representative of the Friends of the Jesse Lee Home would be willing to meet with administration after the completion of the final inspection report, but before the council meeting regarding that report. This will ensure that the recommended options city staff presents to council incorporate Friends of Jesse Lee Home recommendations, concerns, and insights. Additionally, we can also schedule the Friends of the Jesse Lee Home as a presenter at the relevant council meeting or work session. My staff will keep you updated regarding the projected council meeting date, so Friends of Jesse Lee Home has an opportunity to prepare a presentation expressing its position. Scott Mazzaros. The city administration failed to advise us that the report was completed, failed to provide us a copy, failed to provide us with the city council meeting date when the presentation would be made, failed to contact us to schedule a Friends of the Jesse Lee Home presentation to the city council on the project, failed to mention the report was completed and prior to the city council meeting where it is to be presented. We realize that the city is without legal counsel. Perhaps it would be in Seward's best interest to retain some prior to moving forward on making a decision based on a report generated by an engineering firm that specializes in road construction, airports, and advising what to do with materials dredged from SMIC and no experience in the engineering specialty of historic stucco and timber-framed buildings. Suffice it to say, we have significant issues with the findings of facts and conclusions of the engineering report contained in the packet for Monday's meeting found on page 12. The city administration has had no contact whatsoever with the Friends of the Jesse Lee Home, past the placating replies to our repeated requests for information attached below. And then Connor Spanos is the next one, and I'll be reading this one as well. Dear Mayor and City Council, I am writing today in support of the Forest Acres Campground basketball court project. As a former basketball player, there is no option for a full outdoor basketball court in Seward. There are gyms that have limited availability and often cost money to use. This will give kids of all ages and adults another opportunity to recreate, and visitors at the military resort and SPRD campground could use it as well. For these reasons, I support this project and I will be helping Max. And next I will be reading a comment from Liz DeMoss. On May 20th, the governor issued a statement on legislative action on CARES Act funding. I thank the Alaska legislature for approving my administration's plans to distribute CARES Act funding for local communities, businesses, nonprofits, and Alaskans that have been impacted by this public health emergency. These funds will be critical to assisting our state's economy and getting back on track. Businesses open and individuals back to work, said Governor Mike Dunleavy. The response at the May 26th Seward City Council meeting from the city manager when Councilmember Baclan repeatedly inquired about this funding was ask the state legislator, and maybe the payments can just go to the things we just purchased tonight is not what our governor's intentions are for these funds. The city manager's lack of interest in distributing the funds to where they should be going is concerning. It is the city's responsibility to formulate a plan for this money for what it is intended for. Administration should be aware of where the money is and when we are getting it. Supporting small business and the local economy should be the forefront of meetings right now. Not how are we going to gain control to shut everyone down whenever we want type of discussions. It is very bothersome that there hasn't been more of an effort to support small business in Seward during these times. We hope to see more support and proactive efforts from all council members and hope to see you giving direction to administration to provide clear answers to where the first payment is and if we have received it yet. We are requesting that the $4+ million that has been dedicated to Seward from the state of Alaska be put specifically back into small business and nonprofits within the city of Seward, and that a well thought out plan is developed at the work session scheduled for this Friday, June 12th. And Brad Snowden is next, and he will be called on the phone.
Brad, it's Brenda Ballou, and you're with City Council.
This is who?
This is Brenda Ballou with City Council, calling you to provide your citizen comments.
Oh, okay, so let's break it up, break it out here.
Okay, if you're ready, you have 3 minutes.
Well, I don't need 3 minutes, but whenever you're ready, I'm ready to go, I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
Are we on the air?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, this is Brad Snowden, you know, I live in city limits, and regarding the money that's been given to the city to distribute, I thought that the rent might bring around large issues like this, that just makes it small. And if I got the money and people owe me money, or there were opportunities to get money, make money, that's where they incorporate that in the distribution. That being said, if I was a city, I would think, well, one of the ways I could help my small businesses in town would spread that money around to the businesses. In other words, pay their bills that have been falling behind, for example, in the last 3 months during this coronavirus epidemic. That'd be a good time to collect the money and provide that payment from that money, if those money they're made specifically, there's what's left over, then you can take it to look at that amount and how you would distribute that as well. So you swing 2 birds with 1 stone, or another way to put it would be a win-win situation. That being said, that's the sum total of my offering for something to consider.
Thank you, Brad. Have a good evening.
And next is Peter Spanos, which I will be reading. Dear Mayor and Council, I am 100% in support of Max Pfeifenberger's basketball project in Forest Acres. This new court would support the high school basketball players who are always trying to improve their skills. I will be helping Max with this project. And we had one citizen comment that was received at 2:25 p.m., which was after the 2 o'clock deadline. Would you like to allow it?
Let's go ahead and allow it.
So Dana Paperman is our final citizen comment.
Welcome to the voicemail of 9.
Can we just try to redial back one more time and then we'll...
Hi, this is Dana.
Hi Dana, it's Brenda Ballou and you're with City Council.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay, you have 3 minutes for citizen comments.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share our story of senior services. Thank you again, and City Council members. Talking off the cuff tonight, so please excuse me if I stumble over a few seconds. So we've been serving home delivered meals since March 13th. And we have served approximately 6,000 meals in
Dana?
Yes.
Dana, can I interrupt? Do you have a landline we can call? You're fading in and out.
Oh, yes. I'll just go to one spot. Okay, can you hear, am I coming in now?
You're crystal clear now, thank you.
Okay, right here. So, as of March 13th, we were screening 18 million clients, homebound individuals, and so 35 individuals congregate dining room, and that was as of March 20th. We, like I said, full.
Yeah, sorry.
2 weeks.
Dana, sorry, I don't know what's going on, but it's coming and going again.
Yeah, I don't think it's where you're standing. Do you have a landline or?
Yeah. So,
Can I call?
224-8297.
All right, I'll call you right back.
Okay.
It's in the phone booth.
Please start the timer. What was that?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, and so Dana, you started delivering meals on March 13th, I think would be a good place to start.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate the time. So, the awesomeness about us having the audacity to step out and extend our services at such a level, we were really following our mission to help support self-isolation for our senior community. We expanded that service to Moose Pass. We expanded that service to weekend meals, again, to encourage self-isolation during this pandemic. at a peak where we were all in a standstill mandated by the state of Alaska, Senior and Disability Services, that our doors be closed during this volatile time. So we took it upon ourselves to make sure to be serving our senior community as most efficiently as possible. And now that there is another, uptick of the virus in the state, again, there's that threat again and the scare of what comes tomorrow. We are trying to prepare and plan for tomorrow to continue the course that we're on, that our indicators of our seniors are showing us that we're providing an exceptional level of service, keeping them in good nutrition, as well as social connectedness to people that they've never met before, that are delivering the meal to them on a daily basis, which is very important. We just received a survey back last week, and one of the highlights was that connection to their community when they really are threatened by this pandemic at this time. So the state, as of June 5th, they are extending the closure of senior centers, prisons, and long-term care centers at this point, again, because of the uptick of the virus. So we are going to stay our course, continue serving at the level that we are, and hopefully be able to engage the city in becoming that extra financial partnership. We have reached out to Stewart Community Foundation, Meals on Wheels of America, Rasmussen, AK Can Do, Grant, Holland America. We've covered, I think, as many bases as we could at this point in time while serving emergency level of nutrition and services to our senior community. Thank you for this time. I appreciate it. And sorry about the IT and events at my end. So I'm really grateful for you guys and taking on this tough time right now. These are big decisions you guys have before you. But my concern and my advocacy is going to always be for our senior community and keeping that fabric strong and resilient, reflecting great humility of our community. So thank you for this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Have a good evening.
You too, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
There is not.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda. Do you have a motion?
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
Second?
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make the motion to remove Resolution 20-044 from the agenda based on the applicant's request. Madam Clerk, do we need a motion and a second for that? Do we need to vote for that?
It can be done on the approval of the consent agenda and the agenda.
Okay, so we'll take that off. Are there any other changes or amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, Madam Clerk Madam Deputy Clerk will go ahead and have a vote, please.
Osinga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Bachwan,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
The agenda and consent agenda have been approved. On the consent agenda, Resolution 2020-6, extending the city's state of emergency in response to the coronavirus outbreak and requesting state and federal relief assistance. Resolution 2020-047, authorizing the city manager to approve an intergovernmental cooperative agreement between the State of Alaska Department of Natural Resources Division of Forestry and the City of Seward for fire protection. Approval of the May 26, 2020 City Council's special meeting minutes. Approval of the May 26, 2020 City Council regular meeting minutes. And approval of the new liquor license number 5872 and restaurant designation permit for the Lone Chicharron Taqueria.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. Proclamations and awards, there are none. Borough Assembly report, you'll find that on page 4 of your packet. I don't know if anyone has any questions to be passed along to our Assembly member, Mr. Carpenter? Yes?
I did speak with him about Resolution 2020-24, which was the one that we offered a encouragement on, you know, about the hybrid voting or vote by mail. And apparently, I didn't listen to that portion of the meeting, but apparently what happened was he voted with the majority so he could move for reconsideration on it, and it's supposedly going to be heard again on June 16th meeting. And what he told me was that his intent was, or his hope was, to change the vote of the people instead of a vote of the assembly to approve this. So that's the discussion that will be coming up on the 16th, which I encourage people to at least listen to and watch.
I've also heard a lot of people say that it should go to the people and not their decision.
Okay, so if that's something folks want to weigh in on to call.
On the 16th.
Yeah.
That's what he said anyway, the
Okay.
16th.
Well, and I might say that at the last meeting, they did pass resolution 20-041, which was encouraging cruise ships to come back to the state and the borough next year. I just happened to be listening to the meeting. I didn't realize that was on there. So that was one thing that Seward was listed in that. Any other comments or questions? Next on the agenda is the city manager's report. City Manager Mazzaros.
Do you guys care if I move this to it?
Thank you.
Sure. It's just sometimes hard to hear me because I'm pretty monotone.
Yep.
I do have some disbursements. First for SMIC, the overhead door company, for $7,000. Public Works calcium chloride for the streets was $5,100. And the Public Works clutch replacement on one of the older sweeper trucks was for $5,700. That brings us to date with the current transactions. Your personnel issues are there. I was going to first start out by thanking the harbor staff today for, initially there was a call out that a vessel was sinking and they didn't need assistance, but then later this afternoon they did have to provide assistance and fortunately salvaged the vessel and got it out. So I do want to commend our staff. I do have the scheduled meeting for the CARES Act for Friday. I want to throw a shout out to Tim Dillon, who met with us on Friday, to Paul Ostrander, who we've been working with on and off. We have had their materials for about not quite over a week. And for just the assistance in putting that all together, it's taken a lot of people. There are some that are way ahead of us. Most of the municipalities have not actually submitted enough with their resolution and their plans to actually get paid their first dividend. So that will be coming as soon as we get that approved by council. We'll bring it back on the 22nd, and then we're working on the applications, the process. I was given direction to emulate what Kenai and Homer have put together, so we'll bring that to you on Friday, which will be open for discussion as a work session. So that will put direct dollars into community members, nonprofits, but that'll be up to the council how they tailor that, if they like what's presented or want to amend that. The only other thing, I did want, Mr. Fouts provided a letter, but then he was going to do some updating and didn't get time. He wanted to tell everyone, first of all, he wanted to thank Mr. Philip Oates for hiring him and appreciated working and the opportunity that was provided to him by the previous year's administrations and councils. Him and his family appreciate all that's happened to them during their stay in Seward, and we wish him farewell. Friday will be his last day with the city. And outside of that, if you have questions or concerns, there's not a ton of stuff in here, and I know we have a couple presentations tonight, but if you have anything you'd like to ask.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilmember Buckland?
They're real quick, but thank you for taking my call today, and we talked about a lot of the CARES Act funding and all of those meetings. So thank you for the mayor, the vice mayor, Tim Dillon from CAPED for providing that service and being a part of that economic district. I think is very important for us. I just wanted a quick update. Are we going to reschedule the wastewater and sewer studies soon?
So the rate studies are nearly complete, and those will be coming back. It's probably not the best timing with all of the financial things to hear that our rates are low. So that is nearly completed. Doug's not in the audience, the Public Works Director, Doug Schessler. But it is nearly complete, so we definitely will be bringing that back. We've got a couple of other studies that are ready for presentation, and we're kind of waiting to see where the taxes and things hit with the budget before we allocate a lot of different things. I don't want to speak for Doug, but that consultant would be able to provide that presentation on the recommendations for. It also identifies a lot of shortfalls and things with the water and sewer system for long-range planning and that type of thing. So that we definitely will get that scheduled and back before you.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Sure.
Or Councilmember Sears?
Can I talk about the ad in the paper?
Sure.
Okay. I read the ads for My Help Wanted and for the accountant when our prior accountant was going to hire an assistant. I was told that it had to be with experience, not just strong skills required, or not strong wills desired. Now, people didn't get hired the last time that applied that were here for a while, and you weren't here, I know. But why are we saying it would be preferred? Why isn't it, and desired, why isn't it mandatory that we have that? Because if they don't know Excel and then they don't know about the government accounting, then they shouldn't be here, in my opinion. So I would think that this should be corrected in the paper.
Can I interrupt, just to ask you which position?
Yeah.
The accounting, I'm sorry.
Accounting, which accounting, is it
It's a
accounting, what
level
is it,
two.
is the accounting 2 position? Okay.
So who's two? Was that Chris? Was two?
No, Chris was the finance director.
Okay, so where's the finance director in here?
It's advertised. It's been advertised for a quite lengthy
It's not
time.
here,
So it's only
So
run for a
whose job is
short.
this one?
That's the backfill for the accounting supervisor that we now have was promoted up from within. And so she
So
vacated.
Sam was promoted.
No, it's for our accountant. She was promoted to the account supervisor. And so it's backfilling her. She also did grants and other things as an accountant too. So it's backfilling the
Well, then
accountant.
maybe I ought to look at to know what you're saying, than to look at the order that they
Yeah,
go in.
I'd be happy to go through it all and.
I would really like that.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I
No, that's
misunderstood it.
that's a good point. It's fine to ask those
Sure.
questions,
Yep.
so I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure, I hadn't looked at that. So maybe just to clarify, if I
Sure.
can have a follow-up. So the finance director position doesn't
Isn't it
look like
here?
it's in our local paper.
Right, so
That's
some of the
being advertised.
positions are only run for the 2 weeks in the paper. So like the finance director's been posted since August. So if we had that in the paper since August, the cost of that would be pretty cumbersome. So we do run it initially, and sometimes we'll throw it back in there if it's been a few months. But our policy isn't to leave all the openings, because if you look at your sheet, I mean, just the seasonal and summer, we've only hired about half of our normal summer help, just to try to be conservative with funding. And so just those positions alone would be pretty cumbersome to advertise more than just that initial 2 weeks.
But just to clarify, those are on like the Job Center and Workplace Alaska. and other
Right, so
places.
like the finance director is like in the GFOA, it's on the International Certified Managers Association. It's a national recruitment. We haven't used like a headhunter or a recruiter for the finance director position to this point, and I have some leads with some representatives with Foraker about maybe some interim ideas, and I've heard some candidates are interested, but I have not received applications from those interested parties for the finance director. So the only position currently open in finance would be the director and then backfilling the accountant. So if we hired an accountant, the only position in finance we're down is the director.
So how many people do we have in accounting now?
So depending on if you look at the split with the electric front desk persons that do billing. So that's a lot of the front desk billing people work kind of a combination between finance department and doing electric department work. So if you look at the total, it's 6 with the director of 7. So.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have
Well, it's not a question. I just wanted, someone should make clear what time the Friday meeting is that's addressing the CARES Act, because it's at 5:30, which people are locked into 7 o'clock, but it's at 5:30 on Friday here.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Buckland?
Where are we with the Fort Raymond engineering?
Ms. Wild is here if you want to provide an update on that. If you don't mind, be prepared.
Councilman with the Council Mayor, we currently have stopped the engineering. We've got what we needed for Fort Raymond, but because we don't have a capital improvement plan and what priorities the city wants us to take, we took the top 3 off the list, and that's why we've got Jesse Lee Home, Animal Shelter, Fort Raymond was not in those top 3. So once we get the capital improvement plan and you guys can prioritize the top 10, then we'll move forward with that too.
Real quick follow-up, sorry, thank you. Is the plating moving forward and has that finished, or that has to be done after?
That has to be done after, once the council decides the direction that they're wanting. You know, the capital improvement plan, there's been a lot of things out there. You use part of the property for, you know, relocation of city hall, parks and our public works. And so, you know, you can't, I mean, we could do plats all day long, but we don't want to pay to have them surveyed and done. I mean, we have storyboards, we just can't implement them until you guys make a decision on how we want to move that plan.
So we will be bringing the animal shelter forward, and that has been directed by council where it's going to be. That's been surveyed and platted, but then that has its own issues with financing and size and that type of thing. So until we have direction like, yes, build this here, we generally don't do survey work or platting, because it's not really, it doesn't really help until you know what you're going to build there and where you're going to put it on the lot. So the city owns a lot of property, but we don't have a lot of it platted or zoned even. Some of it's just
and with Fort Raymond, you know, the zoning of the road, it's zoned, but we've got to plat the roads, the right-of-ways, work with DOT. And with this new plan with DOT from mile 0 to 99, you know, we've incorporated that into their understanding that we have this plot of land that we need to be able to have multiple accesses to. And that would help the council make a decision.
And I have a follow-up request, and maybe it's to the city manager and the clerk. At the next meeting, could we have some sort of agenda statement that talks about the work sessions that we've had to postpone due to COVID? So, you know, just off the top of my head, we were gonna do, you know, I'm not saying get all prepared for those work sessions, but it would be good to have a list, like we were moving forward with a project work session. We had the electric department work session. You know, I mean, that's just 2, and I think there's like 5 or 6 that I have at a list. So maybe if we just bring that back at the next meeting, like those things won't get forgotten.
And the first,
I have like 10.
yeah, and the first one that got axed and was actually ready for that night was Stephanie with the floodplain.
Right. Oh, yep.
And
so
it's,
that's moving the river with the airport. Yes, thank you. That would be at one of the top of my list with the flood board, exactly. So maybe we can just get a list and see to talk about what we're.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I did want to talk about the senior center. I know we are moving forward with nonprofit access to funding, business access to funding with the muni stream of that CARES Act, and it sounds like the director's doing very good due diligence to get as much funding as possible. But hopefully council agrees, maybe we could have the acting finance director reach out to Dana and maybe talk to her about her needs, because that would be something that we just need to, if there's not enough funding, you know, that might be more funding than we have available through the CARES Act. That might just only partially fund what she's looking for. We might need to do a mid-cycle budget adjustment for them. And I just know that seniors are, I think, if we're not doing anything else in the city but making sure that our seniors are fed, that seems to be a top priority to me.
okay.
So I don't know that we can really direct any funds tonight, but if we could have, maybe at the next city manager's report, what got decided. And then the second thing I'm hoping, you know, there was a lot of chatter, boy, our weekends have been busy, which is wonderful. However, with people come trash, people are pooping in the woods, and one of those places with us being the first run of fish in Alaska is the new city access pullout on Nash Road. And I think our Parks and Rec is potentially overtaxed already. I know that everyone was working their butt off. This is not a criticism, but I mean, there was a lot of people here generating a lot of trash and mess. So I don't know if we can start talking as a city, or maybe even Tyler, if we don't have the staff now because we don't have the funds to hire a whole bunch of summer staff, maybe there's something we can do with the community for that pull-out on Nash Road and come up with some sort of partnership. And then since we're talking about Tyler, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but maybe also he could reach out to Max Pfeifenberger, or whoever you designate on your staff, and do the same, talking about that basketball court. Because I know my kids would have loved that growing up, and some of my kids at home would still use that, so it's, I think, it sounds like I'm being selfish, but I think our youth in Seward, it would really be useful.
Sure.
So if he's not the person, maybe there's those couple things that can be.
Yeah, no, we do have budget for all of the summer help.
Okay.
We just have been kind of holding back. Right now, all of our camping, only every other spot is open in the system.
Yeah.
So 50% of our camping spots are not able to be booked. That doesn't mean people aren't parking in them or using 2 spots. They only have every other one open. And so even if we have full capacity, we're at half revenue, which is why we kind of kept back on the staffing. But at the same time, there's a lot of people from the valley and everywhere coming here. Some of the projects, the basketball courts, the tennis courts, the path, those are all things on the CIP, building the new restroom. Those are all things that are in our capital that were budgeted to do this. They're budgeted, they're just not, some of them are not funded.
Okay.
The only one that was funded was the bathroom, and the $100,000 from that, I've been approached because the donor, Sue, wants to reallocate that maybe to a memorial. And that would have to come before council and some other issues with that. But so, I mean, it really is going to be, if there is a push from the community and they want to see the basketball as a top priority, we just have to get with Tyler, and the council would have to, I would rather, even though it is budgeted, that you give kind of the head nod to spend monies on those types of things before we just do the whole list. And maybe we are trying to get back to those major projects and just kind of like, here's our 2020 list. Which ones do you really want to see happen? So we'll try to have a work session on that as well. I think it's hard just because in the summertime, generally speaking, most of the council and PACAB and people are out and not fully available. And like I said, we could have 2 work sessions every week all summer long, but then how, what is attendance and how, I also don't want to break the staff. I mean, there's a lot of work involved in doing these things. It's not just put them on and show up kind of thing.
Yeah. So, Councilmember Cease?
Okay, we were talking about the space and being at half revenue. I had it checked out today, and a friend of mine checked it out and said that if they are using the second space with a tent, then they get charged for that?
So when you have a campsite with an RV, an additional tent's supposed to be $10. So our staff is verifying that, but that's like the same user has a tent also. So like a lot of people might have a small RV, maybe their dogs are in it or their kids or whatever they do. So an additional tent on their reserved spot is a $10 fee.
Just a $10, even if it's on the front row.
It's supposed to be that. Not everybody has always paid that. We check and we're verifying, and it's a new system, so there's a lot of work, in the license plates and how does it get verified. There's a lot of stress going to our shop because they have to print it out. They do it online, but they don't have a printer. And then, you get in the library, or who will print that.
Who doesn't have a printer?
So like if you drove down in your RV and pay, it's all online. You have to print out the receipt to put in your car window. And like you probably don't have a printer in your camper. Some people do. But most people do not. So they're like, hey, we need you to print this for us. And with the library limited access, it's hard.
So let me just follow up, because I had talked about 2 things, but I want to go back to that pull-out. Like, I think it could be something that Tyler needs to work with DOT regarding. I know there's dispute of whether it's in city limits or out. All those things, just, I don't really care. I'm just saying that, it's a blight on the city. So we need to figure out, go ahead.
Mayor, so So that is city limits, belongs to the city of Seward. I work with the city manager, Will, and I'll call tomorrow morning, and we'll get a dumpster placed there, because our dumpsters across the bay get pretty hard also.
Yeah.
So we can talk to Last Waste tomorrow, and we'll have a dumpster put there, and
Oh,
we'll
good.
have it dumped and have it checked out.
Yeah.
At least until after the reds are done running.
Yeah, that'd be great. Which I know I'm not directing anything, I'm just
Yep.
saying if we could just look at it.
Sure, sure.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Buckline?
I know it's going to be hard for people to hear what you just said, but the harbor master said that they're going to put a dumpster out there. So there is already a scheduled Facebook event for people to go out there and clean up on Tuesday. So there'll be a trash receptacle out there for that event. So thank you for.
Maybe they can just leave it there, and I'll call Dennis at Last Waste tomorrow, and they can just leave it there, and then we'll figure out, get it taken care
Great,
of.
perfect, yeah. So let me just check, because I know
This
I've
is a
been talking a
follow-up,
lot.
yeah.
Is there, it's a follow-up, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So this was a follow-up to the camping thing with the you have to print something. I thought, and this is just my impression, because I guess you use those like that parking by app, right? Is that the attendants in the campground would know by the license plate that the spot was paid for.
Some of that is correct, but yet, like, just not everybody has the tablets and does it that way. So we do go around and verify. It's we use different types of ways to assess if they pay or not.
I just feel like that's an impossibility if somebody's renting an RV to get something printed out, like maybe that needs to be put onto the website that says, maybe it does.
It all is on there.
But, how many people read who are on vacation? Their mind's on vacation, know? So I don't know if there's a better way of, if that's what the system is and how to go about it, so that it's.
We've been exploring those. Tyler's trying to come up with some other options. Because the other part is, to change all that and do that requires us to get in the system, so the phone calls are intense. There's a lot of, they're on the phone all day long. Sometimes automation takes a while to figure out what works and how to streamline it.
Councilmember Cease, I know I talked a lot, but let me check with these folks out here. Did you have anything, Councilmember Butts?
Are we still talking on the same subject? Or?
I don't know, are you still?
I am.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Okay. Our employees that work on the beach area, they don't have a computer?
Many of them don't have a computer walking around. So when they're out there, and some of them don't have connectivity, there is Wi-Fi there, but everybody in the campground uses it, so the access is minimal.
So how does the parking work?
I can get you, Tyler, to provide a response, or we can go.
It just doesn't connect. If somebody comes here and they have to pay for a parking stall that's on an app, you can't print a paper, how do you pay for that? How do they know somebody's paid? They're gonna have to verify, obviously, through a computer. So why is that same process not being used at the campground where people have to print something out?
It is the same system and the same process, but there's multiple ways to get.
I know, just requiring somebody to print something out is where I'm seeing the problem.
Right.
Councilmember Kreitz, did you have a comment?
No, I was just gonna say, I can't speak for Tyler, but I do know we kind of ran into that little bit of issue ourselves, being used to the stickers versus now having to print something when we went and did ours. But I will say that we were out the other night in our parking spot for the harbor at 8 o'clock at night, and Tyler was walking around verifying on each car that they had a permit at 8 o'clock at night on a weeknight. He was,
Cool.
yeah, we were very surprised.
So
So
maybe,
he has a way, obviously,
Yeah.
because he was walking around each car.
so maybe just a follow-up?
Yeah, you can just
Sure,
find out
sure.
how, what is it, is there more, do we need, is it more iPads or,
Yeah,
whatever,
there's a lot of
some
system, we're kind of growing and learning, and we knew that going into this year, it's kind of an ideal year because we're at half capacity right now. That may change, but it's kind of like, it's gonna be a rough year the first time. You can't change the platform it takes a 30-day period in blocks. So like if say we decided to open every spot, we're gonna have to wait till that date to be able to open the reservations. It can't just be like, oh, the council approved it, so tomorrow we change all the scheduling. There's a 30-day sequence to that. So again, that's something maybe think about as it looking out. I mean, I think for now it's a good idea and safer to keep every other one limited at this point, because we don't know where the summer's gonna go. And it feels like there's, having been isolated, it feels like there's a lot of people around and a lot of people in the campground, but keep in mind, it's only at half capacity. So, and that pushes overflow to other people, and that's not a bad thing, and, sorry.
Councilmember Butts, you've been very patient. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of questions. Paving. Do we have any plans for street paving this summer?
So there are several sidewalk projects. On the street paving, every year Doug has some paving. We've just been working on the Lowell Point Road. So that's not technically paved, but it is a D1 enhancement and calcium chloride. So you'd have to, it's in the budget, so we'd have to, again, just like, we have scheduled to pave the entire walkway along the seashore. I don't know that that's gonna happen this year. I really would rather get, some kind of direction before we start doing those things, just because of the economics of that.
Okay, because usually by this time of year, we've already had
Yeah.
a plan in place and we know what streets are gonna get paved and.
Doug does have all of that kind of levied out of what his budget this year would do. I just, we've been very conservative on actually pulling the trigger on some of these bigger projects, just because of it just diminishes the reserve account. But I would rather have him here to kind of explain what he envisions, and maybe when we do that work session sooner than later, we could talk about what are the bigger priorities on the small list. Because those are, I think this year we have 60,000 budgeted. I didn't get a chance to talk to finance before tonight. Brenda, do you know if, did they send you the budget?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. I know it's done and it's scanned, and we just need to put it on the website so that everyone has their budget. At this point, it's, we had the budget January 1st. It's been approved, it's done, but having it a readable narrative and all the page numbers and all the indexes, that's taken a lot with our.
We have one more on his.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I have a couple different
Uh-huh.
questions
Okay,
here.
we'll
too,
let you
if
finish
that's
off.
okay.
Yep.
The dumpsters for the harbor, I don't know if Norm's still out there.
So they are on order. I assume they're being delivered.
So the dumpsters are supposed to be here sometime this month. I haven't checked on them for a few weeks. I didn't want to bug the guy. But he told me they're gonna get shipped up here sometime in June. So I can get an update tomorrow, and I will send it to the clerk, and she will send you the update.
Okay, I tried to open them last.
Yeah, those are, so,
Yeah.
some of their dumpsters are older,
Yeah.
and the bottom had fallen out, so they took them away and brought back these worse ones, so.
Okay. And then just, I don't want to complain, but I am going to. Just two spots I've noticed around town. The corner of 4th and Port Avenue
Okay.
needs some attention.
On trash or?
It's just, it weeds, it's a really beautiful corner, a little
Mowing and that type of thing?
pavilion we have there too for people to rest and stuff like this or too when they're walking around too. And it's,
Okay.
yeah, it just needs a little upkeep. And could someone please fix the electrical box sidewalk in front of the fire station? It's
That's-
been like that for
Yeah, that was something I brought up when I first
almost 3
started.
years. It needs to get fixed before someone,
They're working on it this week. They
Okay.
just have to put some concrete around the,
all right,
yeah,
yeah, I'm hoping,
some,
yeah, especially before the 4th.
Okay.
And on that park, I know that Parks and Rec were just cleaning that park up the other day, last week.
Okay.
They had a guy cleaning all the bushes and stuff, cleaning all the trash, so.
And I run, so I try to notice those things as I go by and mention them, but I hadn't noticed that one. I probably go by there every other day.
Okay.
I'll keep an eye on that.
Great. Let me check with other, Councilmember Rosinga, Councilmember Kreitz, you've actually been very helpful tonight. Thank you. Did you have any comments?
no, that was.
Councilmember Cease?
I just have one complaint also on our road. Somebody ought to fix something at that hole when you come out of that post office. Your car goes in it, and if you want to turn right, you kind of try to miss it, and you get in the other lane, and you can't get between here. So,
Cross street.
that's part of the street. And
Okay.
everybody has to go through that unless you're on the left-hand side and turning left.
Councilmember Kreitz?
I did have something I wanted to probably better now to bring it up than later. I wondered if, what everybody's noticed about the mask in town since we've had all the tourists. I know that I've noticed going into Safeway, probably 5 or 10% of people are wearing masks.
You know, I work at the Yukon, right? I'm just saying, no.
It's not happening. I think there's, maybe local people, but that's it. Yeah, and so the cases, I don't know if you've noticed the curve is doing this. I don't know what anyone's thoughts are if I bring a resolution again for masks, but City of Anchorage is now mandating that if you go into a public facility of any kind, you have to have a mask. It's mandated, so just a thought.
I will say that the clerk has got the banner sign on the fence, that it's been helpful. I wonder if we want to just put a note on our Parks and Rec webpage so that when people are making just a note that masks are encouraged or something about a link to mask, at least in the meantime, just as people are coming down here, that they keep that in mind. Because I do think it is a lot of visitors. Thanks for bringing that up. Councilmember Buckland?
A lot of the businesses already have like mask things that are up. Maybe encouraging other people just to put them up on their businesses. But my other question was, I talked to the city manager today about when our libraries and when everything else was going to come up to full capacity, and how is the city addressing that, that plan of when, I think somebody even said that they just walked into the library today, so it wasn't really an issue, but how the plan works on what are we doing for full capacity and opening up all of city services.
Well, I would say most of our departments, full access to like the fire department and community development, a lot of those things are really appointment only still, just because we have so few walk-ins. Now, when you go to the fire department or building official, the number's right on the door, and you call right there, and or knock, and they'll answer it. So technically, it's just not fully open. The library and the museum, again, that's probably not all cities are the same, but other than recreational pools, like pools and gyms, pretty much libraries and museums has been the last thing to open up statewide. We do have grab and go. We have minimal access. I think it's 6. So we're enhancing that. I think it's, I'm kind of doing it as a rollout. The library director has a plan. We're enhancing that as we move forward. It's not just wide open. I don't know that we're going to get to where it's just like it usually was until later in the summer. I think at this point they're trying to minimize. They don't want people just going in, hanging out at the library. They have removed a lot of the furniture. There's very minimal access points. There's very minimal. They do have the computer lab there. It's got like washable keyboards, and it's kind of there is a difference with a lot of the libraries because you have a mixture of people that use that. Obviously not as much here, but like in the bigger cities, it's a very common that the homeless use it. So there's that additional exposure, and so I mean I could definitely bring forth, the plan is on the website, it's on the library page, there is access, it's just not fully open at this point. So I don't know that.
The plan is on the library page on the city website?
But I don't know that it's been like, oh, there's 50 people trying to get in the library. I think the people that go, they get access, they might have to wait a short period. We've been trying.
Yeah, and it says reservations are encouraged but not required. And then folks can call, and the library number is 224-4082. And there's, if you have access to the packet at home, it starts on page 7. And they are doing a reading program this summer. But I agree, I think, I know it's been opened up quite a bit even since the last council meeting, and I'd like to see it open up even more.
I think our idea is to progression, kind of take it week by week and slowly progress it towards access, more access. It does have access, just not, you can't just walk in and hang out there all day. It's minimized to number and times, and plus it takes staff to monitor and do all that.
And the museum's open again,
With limited hours.
1 to 5.
Right.
Can I ask something about 4th of July? Now, 4th of July, when we have these vendors downtown, are the store owners, I was told that they thought that they were going to be able to move tables out on the sidewalk.
So that's really a chamber event. They coordinate and head all that. I do have 2 members of council that are on that committee. I don't have all the details. I would rather if they choose to speak about that, they could give us an update.
We can do that. I would say later, but I
Okay,
can
well,
talk to you at
whatever.
length about it later.
Okay.
And I believe that the chamber director will be here at the next council meeting, which will be before the 4th of July. I'm sure he'll have an update for us.
He also offered, he's sort of on standby tonight if you want to call him to answer questions.
It's up to Tony. He said he'd take care of it for me.
I would sure like it if we could call him, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, if we could just give him a quick call and just make sure that we're up to date with what he's planned.
Okay. Does the city manager mind during under your report if we give him a call?
I don't mind. It's just that we have 2 presentations and they're, they both have been waiting over an hour.
Let's give, I'm sure Jason can sum it up in just 3 minutes, so we'll just give him a second.
Sorry, I don't think I doubt. I wasn't sure. I thought I had to put the 907 in there, but I don't think
Jason?
Hi, Chamber Director Bickling, this is Christy Terry. I know you're probably watching at home. Council members were just interested in an update on the 4th of July plans. Folks have been getting a lot of questions.
Yep, I will do this and I'll make it under 3 minutes. So,
Sorry.
and, well, first of all, we feel like we're not advertising for this event, but we know that people are going to come here, and so we might as well figure out a way that we can kind of do it safely. And so, Councilmember Steve said, so the plan is to go ahead and shut down the streets as we normally would, and then allow the businesses that do have sidewalk front to move their businesses out there and use the current street and kind of the parking spot areas as for traffic, for foot traffic, and then kind of have directed traffic patterns, and that obviously a lot of signage and whatnot. And then also too, we'll have some vendors, because if we move some vendors up the street a little bit that are spread out, we'll have fewer that will also kind of help keep people apart a little bit, actually. And then we're also kind of planning a parade as well, and we're planning on the fireworks because we believe that's something that we can do and people can spread out like they normally do. And that'll be at midnight between the 3rd and the 4th. So that's kind of our, and obviously we're looking at having extra hand washing stations and some porta potties with extra cleaning majors and that kind of stuff. So.
Great. Are there any specific questions?
That's great.
Very helpful and under 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, no problem.
Hope the corn doesn't when it comes. The corn fritters.
Okay, so are there any further questions for the city manager? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Jesse Lee Home presentation by R&M Consultants.
Oh, and I would say that, so this is just an update on the report. This
Yeah.
isn't like a hearing, this isn't a decision-making point, it's just to get the information. It is a public information, we could probably make that available on the website.
Is he here?
And I did want to bring up, it'd be nice if the Friends would pay the overdue taxes for the past several years.
How much property tax is owed?
I think it's a little over $3,000.
Okay.
Whose property taxes are this?
The city building.
So city manager Mazzaro said that there's property tax still owed on the property prior to it being transferred to the city.
Yeah, there's.
Jesse Lee's, oh, okay.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Butts?
can I ask how long is that like 1 year or 2 years?
2 years. The city generally doesn't pay a lot of sales tax or property taxes. So it's just kind of unusual for us to code it and pay it. And it's not a significant issue, but.
Thank you for waiting. We appreciate that. Hi, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, we have the report in front of us in our packet, and I'm not sure if it's going to be, no, okay. We're ready for you.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Kim Nielsen from R&M Consultants, and this is Mark Anderson. He's our lead structural engineer. If you have any structural questions, this guy. So I think I'll try to get through this a little quickly since you already have it and probably read through it. But you're aware, I'm sure, of the history of the building. I've got a slide in here that kind of shows it's been vacant pretty much since the earthquake, and there's been various engineering reports and some attempts to shore the building over the years, some hazardous materials evaluations. So our scope of work was, step one is basically to revisit those last reports were done, almost a decade ago, and to update them, see what's been done, and some of the degradation potentially that's happened since then, and provide you an update. And our focus on this was kind of with the idea of, there's a state grant for, I believe, abatement is kind of the focus of that grant. So we were thinking, okay, it could be refurbished. What would it take to abate it in that case? And it could be demolished, and what would it take to get the hazmat out in that case? So, skipping to the hazardous materials assessment slide, we've got, our focus was asbestos and lead primarily. White Environmental had been in there in 2011, and we were sampling places they hadn't already sampled, and providing an update on those. So there's a table in this one, the hazardous materials assessment. It kind of gives you a rundown on what they found for asbestos, is the first table. Whether that material needs to be removed if you were going to demolish it, versus if it would be, well, most of it would have to be removed for refurbishing it. And the reason it might be no for demo is that it could be removed with all the other demolition debris because that's the law. So, what couldn't be removed with the demolition debris is the asbestos. There's some 9x9 floor tiles, kind of scattered and broken, friable asbestos all over the place. And also pipe insulation. The big one was the pipe insulation in the crawl spaces of the building, which is difficult to access. So there's photos in here of all that. So for this one, this is a boiler that also had asbestos in it, but they think they could just remove the whole boiler and dispose of it like that. This is asbestos masking, or the laydown underneath the flooring, in a few different areas. And of course that would have to be removed for abatement, but not for demo. This one is the asbestos floor tiles, and that's a picture of the crawl space. More crawl space pictures really on the next slide. The next table is for lead. Primarily it's in the paint around the window frames that could all come out with the windows separately either way for demo or rehab. Same with the glazing, that's the window glazing. And the other, there's a little bit of lead around vent piping that in either case they'd want to get that out before demo or removal. The note on the bottom of this slide talks about a test. It's a, since I don't have my notes, toxic characteristic leaching procedure test. And so when the contractor goes in, for lead, they would be testing their waste stream. So that includes all the demolition debris, so the paint on the exterior of the building is lead. To remove that, they would be taking down, testing their waste streams, so that would include kind of a higher quantity of demolition debris. So it's potential that they may not have to do a whole lot abatement-wise, special handling, or disposal at the lower concentrations expected with a large amount of debris. But they're not sure. They won't know until they take the test. So the other assessment we did was a structural assessment to save some money. We had Snyder Engineers do that because they had done the previous one. I figured they could just go in and update what they saw before. And they did that. They found that it has degraded more in the past decade. There's photos in here of some areas of wall collapse, floor collapse, roof system, broken rafters, posted beams, concrete foundations. And Mark was in there today. Since he's new to R&M, he wanted to get familiar with it, and he probably saw more than that, I think, from what you talked earlier. Snyder also did some shoring recommendations. So the shoring that's been done since 2011 was partially complete. It was less than what they had recommended back then. Some of it was good and some of it not so good. So there's some photos in here of that. So long story short, if it was to be abated safely, they would have to go in and shore up flooring areas that might be unsafe, and potentially some roofing areas as well. So that's pictures of that. So summary page here. It's been, obviously it's deteriorated a little bit more over the years. It does need, it's not a safe place to be. It should only be professional people who know what they're doing in there. For work to be done, you'd have to, to get a shoring plan, a new shoring plan, reinforce what's already been done in some cases, and in some cases add some more. And that is, should be done in conjunction with the contractor's means and methods. Not something you would do in advance necessarily. And the abatement approach for the hazmat would be different, obviously, if you're going to demo or refurbish. So it's something you kind of need to decide before you take the next step. The demo, potentially, the big one, like I mentioned, was the crawl space and the asbestos. There's a high expense to access that crawl space and get asbestos out safely and dispose of it. So with demo, you can potentially demolish the upper portions and expose the crawl space, and then it would be a lot cheaper to get in there and get it out. The other big expense for abatement was bringing the material to Anchorage for disposal. Soldotna doesn't take it, Seward doesn't take it. Another option to save money might be to, if Linden or somebody could come directly to Seward, get it on a barge and it's so there's a range of estimates in here. You've got to be determined, because I was waiting on some figures. I'll have to go off my memory now. But for asbestos and lead removal, it was, I think I got it. $1.5 million for refurbishing. That's to go in there and get it out. The rough estimate, if they were to demolish it, was, we got a range, it was $500,000 to $1 million. And then, so the shoring for both that 1 million number is wrong on there. They should be about the same, $200,000, and almost done. So the total for abatement, is 1.7 for refurbish and closer to 0.8 to 1.1 for demolish. But then you get into the building demolition costs. We got a cost of under $200,000 to demolish the building. And you'd be looking upwards of over $25 million if you were to refurbish the building. And Mark might want to say something about potentially the cost of a new building like it. If one were to want to keep the style of the building, but kind of think it's probably more affordable to start over from scratch.
Excuse me. Just to share what I observed today in the couple hours I spent in the facility, there's nothing that I saw from the foundation upward that is readily reused in a rebuilt structure. The foundations have minimal, if any, reinforcing in the concrete, so they don't probably provide a good basis to build a new structure on top of. So in order to utilize what's there and rehabilitate it in a comprehensive way, the number in my mind was very close to Kim's estimate, and that was $1,000 a square foot. So you were looking at around 24,000 square feet overall. So that's where the $24 million number comes from. In my mind, Kim's offered demolition numbers that would basically remove everything, including the foundations, and then build a new structure on top of that. And doing so could mimic the shape and the finishes on the exterior and all of that, and using maybe more modern methods of construction on the interior, you may be looking at $300 a square foot. The more it needed to replicate existing methods of construction, the cost goes up somewhat probably because they're not quite as efficient. So you're in maybe the $400 a square foot range. So in round numbers, these kinds of replacement costs would be in the range of $8 to $11 million, something like that. So that's rebuilding from the foundations up on the site in a style that may look very much like the existing structure, matching finishes if that was a value. But clearly the costs in that approach would be maybe closer to a third to well under half of completely rehabilitating the existing structure. So that's my input based on my observation.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I'd just like to have a couple, the numbers repeated, I didn't get them. So on this list where he had to be announced, the asbestos and lead removal, what was that number?
Yeah, for the demolish versus to be determined, it would be 0.8 to 1.1. I got a range of costs.
Oh, that's in
No.
the total abatement line. So asbestos and lead removal, I think you said half to 1 million at that top of that column.
Right, so I wanted to correct, the shoring for hazmat is still 0.2. So you're talking around $1 million, the 1.3 total
For both.
just the abatement.
The two of them.
Yeah.
One's 1.7 and one's 1.3.
Maybe you could provide Councilmember Cease with the numbers after.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
It's
Okay, if you
already-
can.
I have it.
Well, maybe you can let her know. So
Well, I think the other thing is if you end up updating this to be determined, then we can just have this distributed and maybe even put online.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Perfect.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, I did have one more.
Councilmember Cease?
So you did use the ones that they had used prior, like Snyder. You used the ones that had done it prior. And also, who else was the one that?
Yeah, and they, for the hazmat was EHS Alaska, they did the site assessment for that.
DHS?
Environmental.
Oh, E, okay, sorry.
Yeah, and also the two companies we looked at for estimates are on here, Alaska Abatement Corporation and Alaska Demolition, basically gave us some free kind of budgetary estimates.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilmember Butts?
Just one question. Do you know if there's any special considerations for this large of an abatement project for such the close proximity of having people around that area, if they're going to have to do something special during the abatement process?
Yeah, I don't. I know that, you know, they will if they have to. And for the asbestos, I'm sure they're containing things, and I'm not sure what they do with the lead paint on the building, the exterior of the building. I think, you know, that's what I was getting at with the test. They're gonna have to test it to see if they have to do anything.
So typically with a demolish type of thing there too, there's a lot of hazmat that can be demolished with it, but being so close proximity to housing and people, some of that, there's a lot of that hazmat that won't be able to be demolished with it. It'll have to be abated before
Right.
you demolish.
Yeah, the asbestos is one of them they have to do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is Alaska Sea Life Center, and it is World Oceans Day, so thank you for joining us.
Where would you like me to present from?
You can come to the podium. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks,
Nice
Kim.
meeting you guys. Thank you, Tara. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, City Council. And it is World Oceans Day, so I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. When I was here in April, we had talked about me coming back in May, but when that was scheduled, we realized it was going to be immediately following Memorial Day weekend, and we would only have 1 weekend worth of visitor data. When I was talking to you in April, we had no idea if we were even open this summer. So I requested that we push this back by 2 weeks. So we now have 3 full weekends and some partial weeks worth of data. So I just provided a little bit in the packet for some updated data. And I do have some information on this past weekend that did make the packet if anyone is interested. But the short story is that we're seeing about 25% visitation compared to what we would normally expect. Normally from year to year, our visitation is very consistent. So this is by far much lower than we've ever seen before. And that isn't an even 25% by day. We're doing a lot better on the weekends, especially on Saturdays. You all have seen people around town come from Anchorage on Saturday. And then we are currently closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We haven't seen that there's enough demand right now to open on those days. So that is the first part of the presentation. And also, I put on my number 2 that our CFO, Walt Young, who is new and actually hasn't seen his office yet because he's been working remotely, did a kind of theoretical, hypothetical analysis looking at the percentage of visitors that are normally Alaskan, how many people come directly from cruise ships, other sort of touring, and he had come up with 25 to 28%. That's before we opened. And so when we started seeing these numbers, we had the first 2 weekends, we were looking at 27%. This last weekend, it was, if you compare it to the last 2 years, it averaged out 25%. And so what I presented last month talked about what our overall revenue comes from. And on page 2 of what's in your packet, I've updated the slide from the last meeting to show what our revenue projections for potential lost revenue look like.
And so this is effectively a 25% revenue loss from when we started opening through September. So with March, it's about a 50% reduction because we were closed half the month, 100% cut in April, and then May was the harder one to do. The rest of them are 25%. So we're looking at a revenue shortfall of about 2.8 million. Now the good thing is, what I told you last time, we did get a PPP loan, which we expect to become a grant, that is $1 million. So take that off the top, and we're already down to 1.8 million. And this is making it really hard to breathe, so I'm going to step back a little bit, take it down. So that's where we're looking at for the, what we're looking at for a revenue shortfall for the year. And of course, when I presented this, we weren't quite sure what the whole visitation from out of state was going to look like. We still don't know, but it does look like that there are some visitors coming. We do tend to see more Alaskans in May and early June. And our visitation normally goes up in July from out of state visitors. So I still believe the 25% number is pretty similar to what we'll see. What we're still working on. So right now we're looking at what sort of cost cutting we could potentially do. Of course, we've already started doing that now. We're not doing any traveling. There's a lot of things that just aren't happening. We're using regular staff members instead of recruiting seasonal staff. During the PPP, if we reduce salaries or wages or staffing levels, we will start losing that grant. So also on Friday, there was a new law passed by Congress, changed all the PPP rules. So we're working on understanding those new rules to figure out at what point that no longer is the case. So we're having to look very closely at that. But then also we're going to look at what would happen if we completely closed all winter. You know, what would that mean of a complete closure from whenever the end of the visitor season until probably sometime in May, which is a pretty serious closure. I'm not meaning just a visitor closure. That would probably be also all of our education programs, all of our streaming programs, serious closure. The challenge is that when you start cutting costs, you also start cutting revenue for us. You start cutting into grant programs that would be paying for those things. So it's not a simple analysis of just saying what would happen if you reduce this. You also have to say what's funding that, what portion of that would have been grant funded, what portion of that would actually be overhead on grants. Some programs you cut them, we actually lose money on the bottom line. But my hope is by the end of the week, because I know you have an important meeting on Friday, that I'll have a better picture of what it would look like for us to cut $1.8 million out of our budget. I don't know what that looks like right now, but I'll be able to let you know. So what I'm asking you for tonight, first, I'm asking for your help through CARES Act funding, if you're able. I realize everyone in town is hurting. But I'm asking for you to look at that. I'm also asking for people from the city, and I don't know exactly who this is right now, council from the community, to work with us as partners to figure out how to fill this gap. Because my gut is that no one's going to like what we bring back in terms of what it would mean for us to cut so much out of our budget. It might be to a point that we can't recover. So I'm asking for your work as partners. Bring in the state of Alaska, Department of Fish and Game, have those conversations about what happens if this doesn't work. You know, let's look at that scenario. We don't want it. It's not good for anyone if that happens, but we need to look at it. And we need some partners from the city and probably also from the state. So why am I asking for this? I think you know a lot of this, but what I talked about before, we do have a limited ability to reduce our cost structure because of our animals. There was actually an article in the Washington Post today about that. I sent it to all the council members today. And so that just came out this morning. We'll learn more about, we'll work that this week in terms of what that would look like for us if we reduce our cost structure. As everyone in town, we have a limited ability to increase our summer revenues this summer. We're going to do all we can. We have a lot of things in the works. GCI was supposed to roll out a campaign this week, which is now getting bumped. So you'll see that. We're working on a membership campaign and just kind of a come down to Seward and see us campaign, which will really help everyone in town as well. We are the anchor tenant in downtown Seward. I realize that our challenges
are not just our challenges, they're challenges for all the businesses in the community around us. So our successes are spread, our challenges are spread as well. And of course, the city of Seward owns the building and the property, and so we don't want, we want as a nonprofit to figure this out, but if we can't figure this out, it becomes a liability to the city. And so we need to find a way together through this times. And really my summary is the entire community suffers if we don't work together to find a solution. Because we need to come up with a workable solution. And so I did send everyone an email today on council with that article and with an invitation to sit down with me virtually or in person to talk about the Sea Life Center and answer questions. I've heard a lot of rumors recently, not coming from any of you directly, but just people in the community about what they think people get paid at the center and lots of other things. And so if you have questions that you don't want to ask me here on TV, please let me know when you can meet this week. I'd be happy to be as transparent as possible. At this point, because of the PPP program, we've not reduced salaries for anyone but me. My salary is down 36% from where it was. And before the PPP started, I reduced it by about 67% for a couple people. So at this point, that brings me down to the point where it's okay with the PPP. But that's, I will be as transparent with you as I can. And that is all I have. I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
Councilmember Bucklaw.
I'm concerned because the funding that you're asking for is lost revenue funding. And how do you think that would fit into CARES Act funding?
So I'm not the expert on CARES Act funding. I do know that Tim Dillon had a meeting with a few council members and with the city manager and is working on that. My understanding is that the city cannot use it for lost revenue. At this point, we are not the city. If the Sea Life Center becomes the city, you can no longer use it to help. But as we're a nonprofit, my understanding is you can give grants to nonprofits. And as I said, I'm not an expert on this, but this is what I've heard.
Maybe we'll talk sometime this week.
Absolutely.
And I just, thank you, Tara, and I just want people to hear two things. Thank you for taking a cut in your salary. I think that shows leadership. This is not an easy time for leaders in the community, and I think you're stepping up to the plate and doing what you can. But I want people to hear, you're not down 25%. You're expecting 25% of your revenue. So you're down 75%.
We are down 75%. Yes. And the simple way to look at this is we make most of our unrestricted revenue in June, July, and August, right? 3 months. Simplified, but that's the way to do it. If each month is only at 25% of normal, 25%, that's 1/4 times 3. That means we're covering 1 month of expenses every one of those months instead of 4 months of expenses. Which means we're treading water over the summer. We're not rebuilding our reserve funds. So that's, and our unrestricted funds are about half of our revenue overall. Our visitor revenues is about half of our revenues. But our other revenues are, with our grants and those sorts of things, some of them have also gotten hit. Our education revenues, we can't count on any education programs next year. We don't know what schools will do. So, yeah, a lot of those other revenues are at risk. Just not as directly. We have research programs that can't happen this summer. Therefore, the indirect cost recovery that we would have gotten to cover our base bills, we're not going to get that.
Well, thank you for being transparent and letting us know what the current situation is. That's very helpful.
And again, my schedule's pretty free this week. I've got 3 board committees that are meeting this week. So those meetings are, I can't really move my board around, but I'm happy to move things around to be able to talk with folks on council any way you wish.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Tara. Thanks for waiting too to come up on the agenda. Next on the agenda, public hearings. Resolution for public hearing is 2020-045. Would you read the title into the agenda, please? minutes.
Resolution 2020-045, amending the Port and Harbor tariff to provide automatic change from transient daily rate to a rate equal to 15 days transient moorage for a 30-day period. This resolution is coming tonight for public hearing and enactment.
Do I have a motion?
I move for the approval of Resolution 20-045.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
See, second. So we'll start off with administration prior to the public hearing if you want to present the resolution, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of our biggest, I would say, complaints down in the harbor is this issue. So if you don't pay in advance, you don't get a break. We don't know how long people are going to be there, and sometimes weather holds people up. And we're just trying to help the fishermen out, help the staff out by getting, trying to make things flow a little better down at the harbor. So we come up with this here because we have a new software system, and it allows us to find out who was on the daily rate. But this will be an automatic switch from daily rate to monthly rate, which saves the boat owner up to $600 depending on the thing in your packet showing you just an example of what it would be. So this is, I know PACAB, we worked with it through PACAB for this. I just think it's a great move entirely for the boaters and the harbor staff that process all the paperwork.
Thank you. Are there any questions for administration? Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Madam Deputy Clerk, is there anyone that wanted to provide testimony during the public hearing portion?
Nobody has signed in.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. We have this resolution on the floor for adoption. Are there any comments or discussion? Councilmember Buckman.
I just want to thank the harbor master because I know there was questions about it in emails like a few weeks ago. And hopefully now this clears things up for people who had questions about having a boat and then not, felt like they were overcharged, but now hopefully this new system will take care of that. And thank you for putting this together. I'm sure the tenants and the people in the harbor will appreciate this much better than the old system.
Any comments?
I also want to say that I appreciate the calls that you give when you have a change or want to tell us about it. If we get any questions. Thank you.
And I just have one comment. Thanks for bringing this to the Port and Commerce Advisory Board. It makes a big difference when that board's able to review things ahead of time before coming to us, because then we know it's been vetted for the community. Thank you. Are we ready for a vote? Madam Deputy Clerk?
So approving Resolution 20-045, amending the Port and Harbor tariff to provide automatic change from transient daily rate to a rate equal to 15 days transient moorage for a 30-day period. Osinga?
Yes.
Cease?
Okay, yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Bachwan?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
This resolution has been approved.
Thank you. Under new business items, both those resolutions have been approved. Under other new business items, we're down to item number 4, and it's vote on the recommendation for a representative to the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission. Letters of interest and application information will be provided as a laydown because the deadline for submission was after the fact. So council will have one of those in front of them, and also it will be in the public record as the laydown. So Madam Clerk, I don't know, I think you would be the best to talk about this item and the process unless we want to have through administration. Okay, we'll go to the clerk then.
So the vacant seat for the city's representative, the terms are 3 years and the current seat will expire in July. So as our normal procedure was, is to advertise and solicit interest from the citizens of the city. The incumbent representative, Cindy Eklund, who's also the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, submitted her letter of interest, and that is the only letter of interest that we have received. So that is before you tonight for consideration.
So we'll go ahead and have a motion and a second to have discussion. Vice Mayor McClure?
Well, I move that we appoint Cindy Eklund as our KPB Planning Commissioner.
I'll second it.
Thank you. discussion? I might just say I'm glad that she's willing to serve again with all of her expertise. She makes an excellent candidate as we deal with the next item on the agenda. So, Madam Deputy Clerk, do we want to call for a vote, please?
So appointing Cindy Eklund as the KPB representative, as the representative on the KPB Planning Commission. Buckwan,
Yes.
Kreitz,
Yes.
Butts,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osinga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
This has been approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is review and approve the city's letter to the Kenai Peninsula Borough Mayor Charlie Pierce for maintaining Stewart's seat on the commission, and that's on page 148. But I have, go ahead.
That's not the letter, though.
Yeah, so I might just ask, so what's in here is the letter to us from the borough mayor. So did we have a letter to approve to send to the borough?
No, so we don't know who your appointment recommendation would be, so we'll draft that tomorrow, would be my guess. Jackie was gonna do that, but because we didn't know.
The timing. Okay.
Yeah, and I spoke to the person you appointed, Ms. Eklund, and we are sort of working together to draft that letter and also take some support from the state on the state code to hopefully get our home rule to stay in the Great River.
Great, thank you. So, Vice Mayor McClure?
Because that letter not only asks him to appoint her, but also to keep Seward's seat. So we need to have that in, okay, just so people could hear that.
So, and I don't know that the council necessarily needs to vote on that. I know I'll be signing it, I believe. Councilmember Butts?
Just real quickly, have they given any indication that they may remove our seat?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, and I spoke to the interim planner for the borough, and he specifically stated that they had not calculated the numbers, but it looks like they're going to try to rotate them out by the year, and it is a definite that they're trying to take us out for this first year.
So Vice Mayor McClure has a lot of background on this. Did you want to
Well,
explain a little?
yeah, that came up at our last meeting when you weren't present, Councilmember Butts, but they've been trying to reduce the number from 13 to 11 for quite some time, and finally managed to do it. And so the way it was stated to us, well, it's a toss-up at this point between Seward and Soldotna being dropped, because they are the two home rule cities, and for some reason in what they came up with, it had so many home rule and whatever. So it's right now we're pleading with the borough mayor, seriously, to keep us and not Soldotna, which is going to be a real tough ask.
And they've also, the map that they had originally put forward with the resolution and the map that they're using now for their districting is different, and it does put us in a really harmful category, and that's one of the things that we're addressing in our letter.
Right.
Councilmember Butts?
Don't want to clarify my question. So what I would really ask, I guess, in a sense was, have they made that decision that they're going to choose us?
No.
No, that's why we.
That's the question I was asking.
So, and I have a follow-up. Can we make sure that that letter is CC'd to our assembly representative? Because we also need to have him working on this, and I think he's up to speed on it also.
Yes, absolutely.
Councilmember Cease?
I think we ought to get the public to start writing letters or let them know also, so it isn't only council and the city people that want it.
That would be good if we could share that information when that seat's going to be decided on at the assembly meeting.
Yeah, and they have a meeting next week.
Is that when it's going to be
16th.
decided?
He hasn't told me for sure, but that's why we're trying to push this as fast as we can.
So maybe letters right away for the public.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Thank you.
So, I believe, is there any other questions or comments regarding that? I think everyone realizes how important it is. Next on the agenda is review and discuss options for alternate meeting locations for City Council, Planning and Zoning Commission, Port and Commerce Advisory Board, and Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for getting this together. It's on page 49 of the packet.
149.
Oh, I'm sorry, 149, of course. Madam Clerk, could you just review what's on the agenda statement?
Madam Mayor, we looked at several locations around town. So if we start just with the chambers that we're in, as you see the current setup, we need to use the tables at the bottom of the dais so that all of council is socially distanced. And really the restriction is the audience capability to have people in a safe distance from each other. The next option is the community room at the library. And if you recall the times that we've been over there, and if you, in your mind's eye, think about the outlet that's in the floor where they set up the projector. And if you go east from there, that area of the room would be set up for the dais for council. And then west from there, the fire chief went and did a capacity study for me and came up with the total number under normal circumstances would be 62 people. So if that could be an option for us if council feels like that's enough room to allow the public to be in there in a safe distance. The Ray building currently, it could be an option, but the university is not open to the public, and until they open their facilities to the public, we won't have access to it. At AvTech, the auditorium they have is, their recommendation is as too prohibitive for space to allow for council. It really wouldn't give us any greater advantage than this room it does itself. The AvTech gym is currently staged as the overflow surge area for COVID, and until or unless we dismantle that or ask that to be dismantled, that's not an available location. And the high school auditorium could potentially be an option if we want to go to the lengths of applying to use the room, submitting a mitigation plan, paying for the custodial and the technical staff to come over. So if there's a, if council feels that that's the level they want to go to, that's an option as well.
Thank you. Let's discuss this. Let me see if there's any comments or let's kick off the discussion.
Well,
Vice Mayor McClure?
Just that in your report on page 151, there were 3 recommendations just for the public to hear. And one would be to do like we are now tonight with the public being able to come in, I'm assuming, or using the community room. And as we discussed last meeting, if we use the community room, what we lose is the television that a lot of people watch, and some folks on the council have been concerned about that. Personally, I don't think we should even consider the high school auditorium. I think that's just way too much trouble for what we would achieve. And we would also lose the television there too, so anyway. So, my mind is it's either this or the community room, just to kick off the discussion.
I would agree with that. Is there any further comments? Councilmember Buckland?
We would lose the the television, which I know a lot of people watch, but it would still keep the radio, and they could be there. So they could still watch it online on YouTube, or on Facebook, if Linda was there, and as well as on the radio. And actually, I feel sometimes like the radio is a little bit more people than the television. A lot of people always tell me, like, oh, I hear you on the radio all the time. Like, what are you listening to that station for? But yeah, I think a lot of people, there's still access on the radio, but I think through my personal experience, now that the state is opening up, now that we're getting things moving, we need to provide access to the public. And I just came from working this weekend. It was like a bomb exploded here. There was tons of people here. So I think responsibly, if we can have more space and social distance there, an area for people to come, I think it would be much more beneficial to the public there.
Thank you. Councilmember Butts?
The library is what I meant.
Yeah.
Community, yes.
Councilmember Butts?
I like our setup now too. With what we're at right now, that this is accomplishing what we need to though too. But because of just the capacity. Even though we've had meetings before too, where we get another controversial meeting, and we're gonna fill that room over there just the same as we fill this room here. Before all this happened, when we had another controversial meeting, we had people just flowing out of this room. So I think that allows us to be able to have more room for people, social distancing there too, and then also room to be able to spread out across the stage there too for the whole dais of the Ray building.
But
It's not an option.
So did you want to,
When it
When
becomes
it's
available.
oh, when it's
it becomes
available, okay.
Councilmember Cease?
Now, when they're talking about 62 people, but it says not socially distanced, so they wouldn't hold 62. Okay,
That's,
I took it first that they could, and then I read it again. Okay.
Right, yeah, that would be under normal circumstances.
Right.
So I wonder if that would be about maybe a third of that, or we have
That's
to
like
measure
20,
it out?
and that's not including the space taken up by us. So if you had 20%, it'd be only, 20% of them, or 30%, that's not very many people.
It's probably twice the size of this room.
Well, we measured it in a way that it doesn't count you. You're already
Right.
taken care of.
And that
So
would
it's
allow
the rest of the audience could be up to 62 people if we didn't have to social distance.
Okay.
Yeah. And so whatever council, if you want to go over there, whatever you feel like is a good number to cap it at.
Vice Mayor?
what if we try the community room for a couple meetings and see how it goes? And maybe after a couple of meetings, we may be able to, maybe the COVID will be gone, but I mean, just, not as a permanent thing. And if it doesn't work, or, I don't know,
I'm very interested in trying the community room. The one thing I am concerned about is that GCI. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of old-time Sewardites that
Old-time.
have watched that for a long time. But I do want to have, I think these meetings, we're ready to have them be more open. So I just want us to listen to those concerns. Councilmember Osenga?
The only question I have is, we have audio here, we have microphones. Are we looking at having that same capacity wherever we decide to go?
There are no microphones set up over there. We can, I don't think we can bring those. 'Cause they're hooked to
There's,
the-
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have microphones there, but you'll have to just project.
Yes.
And there
I
would
guess
have
we
to be a
didn't.
microphone for the YouTube. I don't know how IT department will set it up, but they would be handling that.
I guess I'm just kind of scared that we have a hard enough time with people not hearing in this room. Yeah.
We'll be sitting
You're talking
here.
about
Yeah.
a bigger room.
I think that we could at least try it if people are forgiving, and sometimes people aren't very forgiving. I think if we step out and try to provide more public access, I hope people are willing to take that journey with
Right.
us. Councilman, Vice Mayor?
We've had meetings there before, and it is difficult to hear there. So if we go into it knowing that, and just, of course, we're already difficult to hear. It's gonna be a double whammy on that, but just we'll have to project more through the,
I feel even before social distancing and everything else too, I feel already that this room is too small for some of our events. Even just the way it is right now. So this room has served its purpose for a long time there too, but I think we're starting to outgrow this room.
Would we be prepared to have Friday's meeting in there, or are we looking at the second meeting in June?
That's up to you. We have enough notice to have the location moved to the community room, given that the library I can make arrangements with the library director for that.
Yeah,
Councilmember Osenga? Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I'm not clear if people can call in and provide written comment, and the way they were coming in tonight, it doesn't really restrict access. I get that people can't watch and all be here, but it seems like we're not gaining a lot by pushing everything somewhere else, and the staff has to do a lot of effort, and I don't know, that's just my 2 cents.
Councilmember Osenga?
I forgot.
Oh, sorry.
It left me as soon as we started talking.
I think the difference is being able to sit physically in a meeting and look
See.
and have that relationship.
Turn you guys around.
Councilmember Osinga? I'm sorry, Councilmember Buckland?
I think the meetings have been closed in this way too long. I think, the state is opening up, we need to move forward. We need to figure out what we're gonna do from now, and, I mean, if we keep, I don't know, I feel like we're dragging on this and we just need to move forward, but, at what point are we gonna do something, you know, I mean, are we just gonna keep doing it like this? Is that, you know, I don't think, I don't know.
Vice Mayor McClure?
It was mentioned at the last meeting too. I guess we cannot require the public to wear masks, right? We can only recommend it at these meetings?
You could pass
Or-
regulation.
I mean, we'd have to do a whole thing to do that, but we could highly recommend the public wear masks if we're sitting there with masks, right? Because that's a concern too. It's just like with churches and everything else. I mean, I know, yeah.
Councilmember
I was
Crooks?
just sitting here thinking, the railroad terminal, I mean, obviously has audio set up. Is that not an option for, I mean, it's a huge building to put.
I would say that is an option. We have no heat in that building. So while it seems like that would be a warm place, it gets very cold in there even at 50 degrees. It's almost colder inside than out. But I can definitely, if that's something we're interested in.
I just was thinking that's a
Yeah,
huge
that's
place
huge.
that has audio and we
Yeah.
have, yeah.
I'd be happy to check on that and get back to the clerk, but it is cold in that building.
Yeah.
So, but let's move forward with tonight. I guess, we'll see how this goes, but I mean, we have there are major items on to talk about with the community on Friday, but it might not be as long of a meeting as a regular meeting. We could try it, and see how the sound goes. I think people would be interested in attending in person. It's at 5:30. It could be a trial and error, and then we can get beat up by the public if we have to move back here.
Yeah.
Is there any objections to having Friday's meeting at the community library building?
I just worry, what if the sound doesn't work and people at home can't participate at all? At least here we know it works.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't,
Well,
Go
so,
ahead. Councilmember Osinga, yes.
so would we be doing away with the call-ins and the, or,
That's the
I
other-
mean,
I would prefer that. If
So
we're gonna
we-
be open to the public, then I would recommend we go back to being open to the public.
We didn't have call-ins before.
right, I understand that, but I'm saying now people, maybe someone doesn't want to come out. Maybe someone wants
Oh,
to
because of the-
participate, but they
yeah.
don't want to come out here. They don't want to be here, they can call in. Right now.
Councilmember Buckland,
I
yes. sir.
don't want to do away with the call-ins because I feel that there are some people who still do not want to be in here in person. And either for their health or their own reasons, at this point, they might not want to come in here, but I think there's quite a lot of people who are still wanting.
Is there call-in
Public.
capability at the library community room?
I would imagine, but I don't know for sure.
We've had.
There is, it's right, yeah, they have a telephone just like
Yeah,
this
we've
one.
had,
I'd like to just say for the record that the way that we're conducting meetings here is wholly, with the exception of having people sit in the audience, there is absolutely no infringement on the public's right to access this meeting. I would just want to put that on the record. We have provided access for citizen comments, for public hearing testimony. We have furnished all presentation reports and materials in the packets or as immediately as we've received them as laydowns. I don't believe that we have done anything to infringe anyone in the public's rights to access the business of council in these meetings. That said, I'm happy to do whatever you direct me to do.
Councilmember Buckland?
I appreciate the clerk's efforts. However, I do feel we have infringed on people's ability because processes have changed. So when processes have changed, it makes it harder for people to understand the process when the process had been the same for so long. So infringed on it where it has blocked them from not 100%? No. But it has inhibited some people from having access to the meeting because it's like the last meeting. Some people did not understand what the deadline was or that they could come in person. And then some people didn't know that there was a deadline at 2 o'clock today, or different days. So, no, yes, it hasn't infringed on anybody because it's been open, but because the process has changed, it has caused stress on the community to understand what the process is, and that has now changed, and then changed, and then changed. So, I think we change it again, or, what?
So Councilmember Buckwan, I think there are concerns about, if we go to the community room and it restricts access even more, what are the feelings there?
If the
sound isn't working, or then we don't have people calling in, or...
we run into the same problems here. Sometimes the TV doesn't work. Sometimes the other things don't work. Those are the same problems we run into here. A few meetings ago, the video wasn't working. So I'm just saying, those are the same problems we're running through, had here before. If we just try something on Friday and see how it goes, maybe it doesn't work well. It's not a council meeting, it's a work session. It's a chance to try and to see if it is council meeting, I'm sorry, it's a special meeting. So it is a meeting, but maybe it doesn't go well, but it's not a full council meeting. It's a special meeting and with 2 subjects on it, so.
So, let's, Councilmember Cease?
What if we stayed here, how many can we seat in that audience? There now.
The fire chief recommends no more than 6 if they're all
In
socially
here.
distanced.
Okay, and so could we get a speaker out here and have the chairs 6 feet apart out here on both sides of the hallway? That would, and if they had something where they could really hear us all, it's just like listening on the radio.
I'm not sure how they'd install a speaker in the hallway.
What?
Somebody said something.
Well, open both doors and maybe if we talk loud enough, they'll hear us.
I think anything's open. So let's try to get a consensus. I think we've talked it out. Councilmember Butts, what would you like to do?
I think we should have our meeting Friday.
In the community room. Councilmember Osenda,
I agree.
community
Friday.
room. Councilmember Kreitz,
I'm fine with trying.
community room. Councilmembers.
I'm willing to try.
Community room, I'm community room.
To
community
try it
room.
out, not to commit forever, but
Yeah,
to try
we'll
it
try
out.
Fridays. And then, maybe at the end of Friday's meeting, even though it's not on the agenda, in our comments, we can talk about pros and cons for the next, or do you think it would need more public notice before we?
Oh, you could talk about it.
Okay, well, we'll
Sure.
talk, at the end of that meeting, we'll talk about how we'll proceed. Thank you. And I just want to confirm what you said, Madam Clerk. You have gone above and beyond to make sure that people have access during this time. Obviously, this is a crazy world we're living in, so thank you for your extra efforts. And I thank you for people for dealing with the, it is irritating and annoying to have to relearn, and I just appreciate everyone dealing with the inconvenience too. Okay, thank you. And informational items and reports, there's city project and goal list, city clerk's report on public records request, city Providence financials, Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council Board of Directors meeting, holler out if you have comments, update on Seward summer cruise ship schedule, Alaska Department of Transportation notice of Seward Highway Mile 0 to 8 payment resurfacing project. Look around for that. Next on the agenda is citizen comments. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have folks signed in for citizen comments on this section of the agenda?
Yes, the first one is Rissy Casagrande.
Missy Casagrande, 225 Second Avenue. Again, thank you for having the discussion of making the meetings easily accessible to the public. I appreciate the openness and the conversation of creative ideas. I like Councilmember Cease's idea of just keeping them here because then the people on television and on radio aren't going to lose their clear reception. I can hear just fine from outside, and if you open that door over there, the rest of the hall can hear. There's 7 seats out there, and there's probably room for about 3 more to be 6-foot social distance. So 6 plus, you could get 16 people in here, and unless you have a really big event, then maybe you just tell people to wait outside and they can come in and rotate through, however. But anyways, that would be my suggestion. And then I just wanted to speak some more on the CARES money. The small business community in Seward, I think, has struggled forever. I remember sitting in your guys' seats the first time the electric utility did their first rate study that I was ever aware of. I'm sure there were plenty before that, but in my time of awareness. And the first thing that came out of the gentleman's mouth was Seward, Seward Public Utility is the only utility on the rail belt that has small business paying the highest rate. And the eyes kind of like darted around the room. And there is really, in my experience of doing business in Seward, a very small to zero appreciation for small business. As I mentioned earlier, the last time I looked, I hired somebody to do my cancellations because the migraines that I was going home with every night were unbearable. Last time I looked, I was up to $93,000 just in cancellations. That does not justify my rates being at less than 50% of where I was at last year to try to keep capacity, which is still not anywhere close to, maybe I'm at, I don't know, maybe 65%. If I'm lucky, like that's a high number. This last Saturday with the Reds in, business was good. Like I actually was able to refer people to other people for overflow, and I was so grateful. And town was booming. But you know, as Liz DeMoss mentioned in her letter, you know, there's this huge focus on how we're going to shut everything down when things go south, but there has been zero conversation about what are we going to do to support the people that are hurt by these shutdowns. Why isn't that part of the shutdown plan? And I heard that there was a meeting with the city manager and Mayor Terry and Vice Mayor McClure in regards to that CARES Act money, and thank you so much for even holding the conversation and looking in our direction. I will conclude with that. I have 5 businesses that I am going to try to carry through the next 2 years, because I don't think even next year we'll be able to bounce back to where we were, or anywhere close to where we were. And I was in this industry in 2008 and 2009 and 2007, and all 3 of those years are like a blur. They all 3 sucked, and then I topped it off by giving birth to a baby in the summer of 2009. So, not that sucked, don't get me wrong, but those were just really hard years, and my numbers are lower than that. So, it's tanking. This is real. We really need help. The last meeting I listened to you guys, I cried myself to sleep. It was painful. And I really hope that each and every one of you will take the time and just listen to yourselves. Because the public cares. We want to be a part of this process, and we need your support. So thank you.
Thank you. Madam Deputy Clerk, are there any other folks that would like to provide comment?
And there are not.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is...
One more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor and Council, Jackie Wild, Inside City Limits. I'm speaking tonight as a citizen and then as your Community Development Director. As a citizen, I was part of the Parks project with the bike park. I would love to see us move forward with working with Max. It is a great area. If you drive by there at any time of the day, you see kids out there trying to play ball, and I think it's a great thing. As for the Community Development Director, I would like to point out that we had a planning and zoning meeting last week in here. We did require masks. Nobody fought that. We had 24 people coming in and out. We set it up where, as it is now, where you have the 6-foot difference out in the hallway. We had everybody hand sanitize when they came in. We had them sign and give us their phone numbers, so in case we did have an outbreak or something happened. It worked really well. I would like to see that happen with council, because I do believe that we need to have the process and allow people to come in and speak. Ways to allow, I had my laptop ready to be set up in the hallway so people could watch on YouTube. I spoke to the chair about the 3-second delay that is on YouTube, and we ran the meeting, I think, pretty flawless. It worked really well. And you know, it keeps it on GCI, and it keeps it where people are able to know that it's happening right here. I also would like to point out that we have this really great big screen TV, and our R&M came down tonight. They drove down from Anchorage to do the presentation. When we were told to give it to the clerk, we told her that we would have an updated one with the to-be-decided numbers. We weren't allowed to use that tonight, so I want to give you guys the updated numbers, the budgetary estimate. I will send out, but it is, because we have technology, we should have the packet up there online to be told, well, it's in the packet. If you're watching it on YouTube, you may not be able to see the packet at the same time. So it'd be really great to have somebody scroll through. We did that at our planning and zoning meeting, and it works really well. Gives everybody the ability to see what we're looking at. Thank you.
If there's anyone else signed in. City Manager, did you have any comments? We'll start with you today.
No, I just, I think the CARES Act, I think Tim did a really good job with us of explaining that this doesn't make anybody whole. It's supplemental income. Hopefully we can put it where it really needs to help those that need it. It's a plan and it's assistance, and we're going to try to do our best to make those businesses that really need it. Hopefully it helps, right? And it's kind of like all of the assistance out there. There's some new stuff that the clerk sent out today about housing. There's a lot of pools of CARES funding. It's important for us to be able to advocate what those are, to put people and connect them with the right resources. And the chamber has been really good about trying to communicate to the business sector as well. But I don't know, for some reason I keep getting this public smear. I'm pro-business. Business is what pays sales tax. They pay a lot more in property tax. They pay for our schools and our jobs, and without the businesses, we have no town. So I think, you know, the appreciation, I don't know where that comes from. I do, you know, if our funding, just like the businesses, we're going to have a huge hit. Typically that means we chop or cut, and the alternative is to raise funds, right? So how do you do that as a public entity? Usually that means taxes, increased fees. So, you know, it's that pay me now or pay me later, and nobody likes to have that discussion about what happens when everybody's funding goes down. We make hard choices and hard changes, and I think that's every community in the country and in the world right now, and it's going to take some creative, we can do this, we need to continue the building and draw more businesses, and so we need to support them. And I think it's not easy. We're not going to help everybody. with the limited funds we have, we're gonna try to use them as best as we can to come up with a good plan, and hopefully it helps to keep those to weather through, because I think that's critical for us. So I do thank you. I think, me personally, I feel like some people, this actually makes more ability to comment, to write in and call in, and I think I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we're doing our best, and the council is definitely doing their best too, and I appreciate your volunteering and running and sitting in those chairs. So I think we're making good positive changes, and we'll continue to do that. Thank you.
Councilmember Kreitz?
I think I would just like to say, I do like Jackie's comment about how they ran the P&Z meeting with making the mask mandatory, and I mean, I know if you notice, when you're going into restaurants, you're having to, sign your name and your phone number, and I think if that would encourage people to be more present at the meetings, if that's what they want. I think that's only a small thing to ask of you, to wear a mask if you'd like to come. So I think that would be a great idea. As far as in the community, again, I want to just ask everyone. I've gotten, I guess because I'm a medical person, they call me and talk about, in town here, just different businesses. Have you seen people aren't wearing masks? And I would just like everyone to reconsider, if we keep seeing the numbers go up, or if we start seeing numbers here in Seward, that we really reconsider what's happening with the mask here.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Osenga?
Just say thanks to all the people that came in and made their comments and the presentations. And I would agree. I think I would love to see people being just a tad bit more cautious. Masks just is not really that big a deal to be able to maybe protect others. We just need to be careful, be safe out there, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Butts?
Well, I want to, there again, thank everybody for their comments, and sending it in and calling it in, telling you to continue to wash hands. Yeah, that's what it is. And so, our representative with the borough also put it in there, but I also want to make sure to publicly congratulate Carla Nichols for her ASTE Teacher of the Year. Local girl been here for, so. Another one too, making sure that, today was a little bit of rain, but make sure we are fire-wise out there too. We're starting in June and July, these warm summer months. Please be careful with your burning barrels, warming fires, things like this or too. Thank you to Cindy Ecklick for stepping in there too. And Max Pfeiffer, great idea. Can't wait to, see if we can go with this whole thing here too. And for John Fouts, thank you for his years of service. And I want to give a special thanks to the Seward Police Department for the number of protests that we've had lately, and their professionalism, and I think they've done a really great job this last month. Something like that.
Thank you. Councilmember Buckland?
I want to say first, thank you for the police department for marching with us on Friday. It's Friday? Yes. Sorry, it's been a long weekend. I've just returned back to work, so it's been a lot trying to catch up for me. And thank you for the people who do work all the time. I get a good break in the winter, but I want to thank the clerk for all her hard work. I know this is not easy, and there's a lot of changes that had happened. Partially, it's hard to, when I've been back to work, reading the packet and getting caught up on everything. Sometimes there's changes, and I'll read or scan an email, and I'm not really looking 100% at all of the details at it, and I just think that it was the process. So when somebody had asked me about deadlines, I had said, oh, I didn't know. So reading and staying up to date with all of the clerk's correspondence is important if you want to be part of the process. When we are talking about CARES funding, and the city manager says that he doesn't see what the pushback is one, asking asking about the CARES funding for a very long time, back to when we were in meetings on the phone. So, and I know at that time still we were looking at clarification on things and where the money was going, how the money could be spent. And I think there's a lot of education that I've done for myself too, to try and look and see what we can spend this money on. We're lucky to be a part of AML, where they have new guidance and new people who are helping us, or who can help us with this. So I'm glad, and I'm happy for that. He had mentioned if the city takes a hit, what would happen? Businesses are going to take a hit for this, which is why at the last meeting I did not vote to add the new position. The reason being is we normally don't talk about positions until budget. And when we make decisions and taking money out of the general fund to fund positions, I feel we should have waited on that a little bit, unless we were going to find the revenue from somewhere else before we added that position. When we talk about increasing fees, I did bring and suggest and talk about some fees that we could have raised at the campground. And then there was a meeting with the city manager and the parks director. And I know that it's a 30-day billing thing, or people can make reservations for the summer. So I hope that we can work together in the future to assess the fees for next year at some time and revisit that, the fee structure and some other solutions for the camping area. So I want to thank everybody who tuned in and who are watching and who are paying attention. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
Okay, first I want to also thank everybody that had comments by phone and coming in and letters. And I hope that we can really support Max Pfeifenberger's program that he would like to see done. I think it'll be wonderful for the kids in town. And I think that also wearing masks, and I'm sorry, I'm one of them that I just hate them, I can't see. But I think I do wear it when I go to the grocery store, etc., or when I'm around other people. And I also want to say that I did rewatch our last council meeting, and it seems like some of the stuff that I kind of overlooked or just didn't quite all hear it, and I think it's a good idea. I don't know how many other the council members have ever rewatched it, but I'm going to again. And I want to thank the harbor people for helping that boat today. That was great. And also the police department for the march on Friday. And I will be real excited to get the budget, because there was a lot of things on the financial report that didn't have anything in a budget, and we're way over on them already. And so I would really like to have that to go over. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Okay, well, everybody said most of the things I was going to say. I'm really glad that Cindy stepped up to continue her stint on the Borough Planning Commission. It's a kind of it's almost as thankless or more thankless than being the borough assembly rep, because people don't even know it exists. And so you put in the driving twice a month just the same, and it's a lot for, and people aren't even aware of it sometimes, but people will become aware if we don't have a seat on that commission. So as Council Member Cease said, it might be time for people to write a few letters to the Borough Assembly, and recommend that. It's important. I'm excited about the basketball court too. I'm curious what we need to do next, so we'll be moving along with that. It sounds like almost all of us are excited about that. I recommend tuning in, however, or coming to Friday night's 5:30 special meeting. Give it a shot. We're going to try it over there. We'll reassess. If you don't like it, let us know. If you don't like not having, there's a lot of negatives there. If you want the TV let us know, because we're going to make some decisions on where to be. We're trying to be open as much as we can and wear a mask, if you will. If you're interested, I've gotten quite a few questions about the 4th of July. People are wondering what events, what. And the chamber hasn't finalized everything, but I'm just directing them to call the chamber. They'll give you an update on where they're at. There will be a parade, as he said. There will be fireworks at midnight on the 3rd, as usual, and we'll have a good old time and hopefully safe. And June 21st is the solstice, and not only is it the solstice, it's my mom's 90th birthday. So I'm not organizing, I don't think anything, and she doesn't really answer the phone, but stay tuned. We might have a drive-by or something on that day. Tony was suggesting he would help, but anyway, she'll be 90, and I think she's just about the oldest person living here that was born here, and she's, so it's a big deal. And it's the solstice, June 21st, and Lee Pileski and I are planning to do the cemetery walk with social distancing. We're not quite sure how that might work yet, but stay tuned for that. I might even announce something on Friday at our meeting in my comments, because I didn't really speak to him, but he's got a plan, and we do this thing, and if you don't know, that's usually at 10:30 on the night of the 21st, and we go on a little cruise through graves, sites, and he reads old-timey obituaries of those, and it's pretty neat. Anyway, so that's all I got.
Great, thank you. I have a list, I'll try to go through it quickly. I want to thank Seward for the peaceful rally in March. I don't know all the organizers, but I know that Councilmember Baclan was instrumental in that. I do know that Pastor Jim Depkin led off with a prayer, and then another city employee, Javante, just had a very inspiring speech as someone growing up in Seward. So thank you, Seward, for doing a great job with that. And I just want to again echo, we have an excellent police force here. Officer Woodard, Officer Mallory, and Officer Mesmer, and Sergeant Schaefermeyer were all at the event, and I know there's great leadership letting them be there, and just just very peaceful on all sides. So I want to thank everyone for that. Good job, Regis. He now has accreditation as a Marine Port Executive. That training was. He obtained this last week, so it's great that our local, and that was an in-state training with a reduced cost that he was able to take advantage of. So just a very timely training and well-deserved. Thank you to Tim Dillon and Jason Bickling, both of those directors, Tim Dillon with KPED and then Jason Bickling with the Chamber, have been doing amazing things for businesses in Seward, trying to connect them to information with the CARES Act. I want to encourage again everyone to listen in or attend Friday meetings. We're going to be talking about Code Orange. That's if we have an outbreak or surge of COVID in Seward, how we would address that, because we definitely still do not want our hospital to be overrun or our healthcare providers to be overtaxed. And then again, the other piece to that is we'll be talking about the CARES Act, the funding source through the municipality to the city. And then June 16th, attorney interviews. 11 and 1, and it sounds like maybe the location is to be determined, but either here or at the council or at the community hall. I don't think I ever welcomed the new planner. We have a new planner in community development. It's been a couple meetings. I believe his name is Eric, but we're excited to have him. I think there's lots of projects and things for him to be working on. And then I did want to say, so today came out up to $1,200 of housing relief available for qualifying Alaskans. So this is a new program announced today, eligibility requirements and process for Alaska seeking financial relief for their rent and mortgage obligations. So you can go to alaskahousingrelief.org, or I'm sure, you could call the clerk and she could send you this information. It's been distributed to us.
I distributed that to the community.
Good, okay, so that's gone to the community, thank you. And then I believe this Thursday, the borough, so the city's muni money that comes to us, there's you know, there's some nuances there, but if you're outside city limits, you need to be paying attention to the Kenai Peninsula Borough and how they're doing their funding. And I believe that they're just a day ahead of us with their community meeting, so that's Thursday. So I definitely contact the borough if you live outside of city limits. And then at the next meeting, if we could have on the agenda maybe scheduling a budget committee meeting to start that, get that budget committee going. Because we have not yet, because we should be able to have those budget books in front of us. So we are still waiting for those budget books and different things. And then I'm sure everyone watching this meeting is already pretty civically minded, so they've already done their census, but bother a neighbor. Pick 5 people on your Facebook and specifically ask them if they have filled out their census. And then I'm just going to brag on my kid. Why it's so important to have a basketball court in this town is my son funded his whole college career because of playing basketball, and he also played some semi-pro ball in Mexico and got some recognition. So you know what it is, kids can really go far with sports, and we need to encourage those kids. So with that, it is 9:40. I will adjourn the meeting.
What was the meeting? For your own,